Hello, and welcome to the pre-event media conference for Submission Underground 2, presented by Flow Sports and Chael Sonnen. At this time, for opening remarks and introductions, I would like to turn the call over to Mr. Chael Sonnen. Please go ahead, sir.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. This is the official media call. We have Dan Henderson and Jon Jones on the line. It will be the main event this Sunday, December 11th, at Portland's Roseland Theater, presented live at flowgrappling.com. The window to watch will start at 2:30. The main card will go live at 3. That is Pacific time, 6 o'clock Eastern time. And we look forward to your questions.
And at this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Mr. Jon Jones.
Hey, what's up, guys? Jon Jones here. Excited about the event, and I'm excited to answer some of you guys' questions, and ready to get this thing rolling. So that's it.
And next, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Dan Henderson.
Hey guys, good morning, and I'm excited about the event as well, and this is going to be my first actual grappling competition that I've done, so I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to answer your questions as well, so thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'll now begin the question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question on today's conference, please signal by pressing star 1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Again, that is star 1 to ask a question on today's conference, and we'll pause for a moment to assemble the queue. And we'll now take our first question from Junkie.com.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to start with Dan, if I could. Dan, obviously retirement to you does not mean what it does to other people, maybe sitting around and that sort of thing. I'm just curious, is remaining in competition like this something that you anticipate yourself doing, or was this kind of a one-off opportunity that just presented itself that made sense?
I wasn't looking to do this. Chael called me up and presented me the opportunity to do this, and I thought it'd be fun and a way to, I guess, keep motivated to stay in a little bit of shape. It's and with the history of the one fight that I had to pull out of in my whole career falling through, and it was supposed to be against Jon Jones, I thought it'd be fun to at least grapple against him.
Yeah, no doubt. I was going to ask you about that. I mean, of course, this is being marketed as the fight that never happened at UFC 151. I mean, will this help address that whole, I know you said, kind of in some of your last fights, you said you always regretted that didn't happen. I mean, do you think this will kind of address that and put it behind you, or is this, something totally different and won't be able to address that for you?
No. It's obviously not a fight. It's not in the UFC for a title, but it's something I prepared for and felt really ready to fight, and never got to happen. And at least we'll get the grappling part of it handled here, I guess.
No doubt. And if I could quickly for Jon. Jon, I know that, obviously it's been kind of a tough stretch for you lately, but can you talk about what this means to you? I mean, is this just a fun little side gig and something unique to do, or is this kind of maybe more important because this is like your only outlet for competition right now?
Something to keep me busy, something to keep me active. Had a long layoff before fighting over in St. Croix, and wasn't my best performance, and so I'm really trying to just keep my competitive spirit alive and stay familiar with that feeling of competing and things like that. So I'm excited to get out there and just fire fire up my competitiveness before July.
And I know Dan had mentioned before, he got criticism and, he had to pull out his fight and always wanted to address it. I mean, you got criticized after 151 as well. Is facing Dan, at least in a grappling match, something that you felt like needed to happen in your career? I mean, had you thought about it over the years? Is it something you really wanted to do?
I don't feel like it was something that needed to happen, but it's something that I'm certainly glad is happening. I've had the opportunity to compete against a lot of the greatest fighters, ever. Excluding, I guess, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Dan, and Tito. Outside of that, I've beaten everybody already. And so to get one of these legends under my belt is going to be great for me. I'll be able to tell my grandkids about it one day.
Very cool. Thanks, Jon. And just quickly for Chael, if I could, please. Chael, I'm just kind of curious to get your vision for what you see as the future of Submission Underground. I mean, this is two, huge names in the world of MMA, and it would seem that marketing to MMA fans would be the best way to get this out there. But you've been around the sport long enough, too, that sometimes, when the fight hits the ground, that's when the crowd start booing and asking for a stand-up. So I just wonder, how big you think this can become and kind of what you see as the overall vision for this promotion.
Yeah, we like exciting matches, and particularly when we've got big matches. I mean, a lot of people are arguing that right now Dan Henderson should be the world middleweight champion. A lot of people made that argument, including one of the judges that night. Jon Jones is the single greatest talent this sport has ever seen. So you've got the parity to get guys like that together, and they were supposed to go at it before. I don't care if these two are arm wrestling. People are going to tune in to see it. As far as excitement goes, and we always want excitement, it's an 8-minute match. Now, there is an overtime format, but in 8 minutes, neither guy is getting tired, neither guy is stopping. They're going to be going the whole time. And I can tell you, as far as the idea of getting grappling going, we didn't reinvent a new iPhone here. Okay? This isn't some kind of genius idea. It's an 8-minute grappling match, and this is what these guys both come from. So many people wonder, how far could Jon Jones have gone in wrestling? Don't forget, he went to the highest level that he was eligible for when he was in high school. Highest thing he could do is win a state championship, and he did. When he was in the junior college, the highest thing he could do is win the national title, and he did. He then changed sports to become an undefeated world champion in that area. Dan Henderson made 2 Olympic teams. I was there when he was named Outstanding Wrestler at National Opens before. I don't even know how many titles he's won in that. So we took Jon Jones's greatest weapons away, the 86-inch reach, the diversity and surprise attacks, the creativity of his elbows and knees. We took Dan Henderson's greatest weapon away in that big right hand that he's put so many people to sleep with, and sent them back to their roots. As far as people want to see Jon, this is an experiment, and we really don't know. I can tell you every indicator we've got has been positive. This venue is completely sold out. Outside of the NCAA tournament, I don't know of a grappling tournament or a grappling event that's ever sold out. I don't think the Olympic Games for freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling sold out. It could have, but I don't know that it did. We've got a huge buzz going for these two. And they got a great supporting cast too. Jeff Munson and Warren Brooks is a big match. Jessica Ai and Misha Tate is a big match. But this match was supposed to happen. It was supposed to happen 3 years ago. These guys both want to wrestle each other. They're both being very nice and sportsmen today, but this match matters. It matters to them, and it matters to our community.
And we'll now take our next question from Alexander Lee with The Score.
Hi there. I've got I'll start with a question for Jon. Jon, I'm curious, regardless of how this goes, who else would you like to see Submission Underground bring in for you to grapple in the future?
Well, I kind of put a little thought into that. It's funny you asked. I'm aware that I may be a little heavier than Dan. So I'd like to maybe challenge a heavyweight after this to see how I stack up against a guy who's much bigger than I am. No one in particular, though.
Okay, I think everyone's always wanted to see you compete at heavyweight in some form, so that would definitely be interesting. For Dan,
I think it'd be a big seller, for sure.
Thanks, Jon. For Dan, I wanted to ask, what was the reaction from your friends and family when you told them that obviously, you're not fighting again, but you are jumping right back into another combat sports competition? Well, what did they think of that?
Well, I think it was very similar reaction to probably everybody, kind of a little chuckle and asking if I was serious. And then, I'd say, yeah. And they would say, oh, really? When? I want to go watch. It was supportive, but they all thought I was kidding as well.
Okay. Oh, I have one more question for Jon. Sorry. Jon, when you were talking to Joe Rogan, it sounded like you hadn't learned the Eddie Bravo Invitational rules yet. Now that I assume you have, what do you think of those rules compared to other kinds of fights and competitions that you've been in?
Definitely different. It's different. I can't say I have any experience with anything remotely close to this, but me and my trainer have been spending the last several days going over the rules and going over the positions, and I feel like I'm prepared for overtime if it goes that far.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jon. Thanks, Dan.
And ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, it is star one to ask a question on today's conference. And we'll now take our next question from Danny Segura with MMA Fighting.
Hi, how are you guys? First question is for Chael. How exactly did this matchup come around, and what was your decision-making process to put this grappling match together?
Yeah, so we talked to Jon Jones first, and we wanted Jon to wrestle Vinny Magliesh. So essentially, you see the storyline there. It would be, a match that in the grappling community, Jon's not likely to win. Jon loves those kind of challenges. The community would love to see that. So we tried to put that match together. Jon's fine with it. But he said, you know what, before you call Vinny, if I'm going to come out and do this, I do have this thing with Dan Henderson in the past. Dan's about to retire. We switched weight classes a while ago. Maybe we could patch that boat up. And we thought, boom, that's the one right there. There was also some talk going on with Nick Diaz versus Jon Jones, which weight-wise is a bit of a mismatch. But those were the ones we discussed. And when Jon said that, and it wasn't a challenge, he didn't say it aggressively, I'll be fair, but he did bring up Dan Henderson's name. Let me call Dan. So I called Dan, and Dan picked up the phone. And if any of you have ever called Dan, right there's a win. He picks up the phone, and I tell him about it, and he says, let me ask my wife. I'll call you back. And his wife, I could hear the door open. She came in the house, so he turns to her, and he said, hey, Jon Jones on December 11th in a grappling match. And I hear her in the background say yes. So he comes back on the phone. He says yes. That was it.
Okay, and for Jon, Chael just mentioned that's perhaps a match you wanted to get into. Is the match with Vinny Magalhaes in the future, does that interest you at all?
I talked to my jiu-jitsu trainer about going against Vinny, and I was advised not to do it. Vinny has years and years of experience in jiu-jitsu, and I have almost no experience in competitive jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And so, I talked to my trainer and I told him that I'd love to do it. And I believe that I could rise to the occasion and shock the jiu-jitsu community. And my trainer, quite frankly, was just like, why even give that to him? Mm-hmm. He didn't think it was a good idea for me. So I just said, all right, well, let's look for maybe more of a MMA fighter instead of someone who lives, breathes, sleeps jiu-jitsu. And so we mentioned Dan, and we got a pretty quick response. So now we're here.
Cool. And is this a one-time thing for you, or do you plan on perhaps competing in grappling, in the future again?
I'd like to be a part of this full grappling family and and do lots of events. Use this to use this platform to kind of give a little back to the jiu-jitsu community, which is a very important community in mixed martial arts. And also, stay active and do something for the fans. Like I said before, I would love to beat Dan on the 11th, and then I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, you're a lot bigger than Dan, so I'd like to follow that up with a victory over a heavyweight in the next show.
Cool. And quickly for Dan, you've had a pretty successful career, obviously, in wrestling and in MMA as well. What do you think a win over Jon Jones here in the grappling match would do to your overall career in combat sports?
I don't know. That's a question I guess the fans will have to figure out, but it's not anything I've competed in before. Jon Jones is fairly new to this as well with the grappling part of it, and it's not fighting, it's not for a belt, and but I still think a lot of people want to watch it and want to see who wins this, and I'm definitely out there to win, and I'm sure Jon is as well. So I don't know, as far as myself and what it means, it'll be kind of a nice thing to have accomplished, but it's definitely second or third place to going out there and beating him in MMA, and instead. So, but I'm excited about it. I'm happy, and I'm going to enjoy it and just have fun with it.
Now, obviously, grappling provides a little bit more longevity than MMA for obvious reasons. Is this the same question for you that I asked Jon? Is this a one-time thing for you, or have you enjoyed this training and hope to perhaps compete in future grappling matches?
Well, I was pretty serious about retiring when I tried to retire, when I did retire from MMA, and I was planning on taking it a little easier, and I think my wife was a little more excited about this than I was. So, I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know if what I'm going to do any more of these in the future. I want to see how it is and see how much fun I have with it, and then go from there.
Now, you mentioned your wife. If you think your wife wasn't on board with this, you think you would have opted out from this match?
Yeah, I don't know. It might have taken a little bit more convincing, but at the end of the day, I never got to compete against Jon Jones, and this is an opportunity to do that in a limited fashion compared to what we were supposed to compete as. So more than likely I would have done it regardless.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys.
And we'll now take our next question from Damon Martin with Fox Sports.
Hey guys, first question for Jon. Jon, when UFC 151 got canceled, justifiably or not, you took a lot of criticism for that. How much did that event and the outcome of what happened with that event play into your decision to do this particular match? Just because of, I know that you said before that's something that stuck with you for a long time, the way that you were criticized for that.
Yeah. Your question exactly was how much the UFC 151 factor in me doing this?
Yeah, I mean, did it play any part? Were you thinking this is a chance to kind of make up for that, or did it play any part whatsoever?
Yeah, it didn't really play that much of a part, but I mean, it's a part of the storyline now. Like I said before, I never got to compete against Dan, and Dan is he's a guy who's greatly respected. I often get people that come up to me with the UFC 151 poster of me and Dan on it and ask me to sign that. So I know that it means a lot to a lot of fans for them to be able to see this. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm curious, Jon, you've been doing a lot of grappling recently. I know when you were going into the fight with Dan, you were very confident. How confident are you of going out in this match and not only winning, but, finishing by submission to finish Dan Henderson. How important is that for you in this matchup?
It's important. It's important for me. I think one of the, I feel like a lot of my fans hold me to, they hold high expectations when it comes to me inside of the octagon, not so much outside of the octagon. But I feel like most of my performances are usually dominant, so I don't really feel like I have the luxury to not perform in an extremely impressive fashion. So I put pressure on myself, and I put pressure from my fans to not only win, but to look great doing it. And that's my plan, is to go out there and really, really dominate the way that I've done in mixed martial arts. I feel like I have a gift in mixed martial arts to do really well and to make it seem effortless, and that's something I'm grateful for. But I don't know what the gift looks like in jiu-jitsu. So I'm hoping that I have that same mojo on the mat that I do in the octagon. But that's going to be a learning experience for me too, to see how I perform. I'm assuming that I'll be on and I'll do really well, but no one's ever seen me or Jan in this situation, so it's going to be some questions that I have to answer on the 11th.
Yeah. And Jon, you mentioned, everyone wants to match make for you now that you're doing this grappling match. You said maybe heavyweight. I am just kind of curious, because another wrestler that you do have a history with that would be an interesting grappling match, would you have any interest in maybe grappling Daniel Cormier at some point in the future, considering you did have, quite a bit to say with the wrestling and the match you had with him? Would you ever consider that as a grappling match?
Man, that'd be a hell of a match. But no, I wouldn't want to play with Dan with Cormier at all. Me and Cormier's storyline is so big and important to me, and I wouldn't want to give him any false sense of security or anything. I just want to kick his ass with my hands and feet and elbows and knees.
And one question for Dan. Dan, throughout your career, you worked so tirelessly on your knockout power in your hands, but you come from a Greco-Roman wrestling background. I mean, how was it getting back into that for this match? Just focusing on the grappling side, just focusing on the wrestling side, something you've done your entire life, but, maybe that hadn't been your number one focus, throughout the last few years of your MMA career.
It's always been a fairly big focus. Yeah, I grappled every training camp, maybe not focused on it, just depending on who I was supposed to be fighting. But, I spent a lot of years doing grappling, never competed in it, but always had fun learning new things and getting in and out of submissions. And I think I'll do pretty well, and I'm pretty confident in my grappling ability for this match.
And one question for Chael. Chael, this one of the unique things about Submission Underground that I think a lot of people are attracted to is that you are getting the biggest names in mixed martial arts to get into these grappling competitions, especially with Jon and Dan, and now you got Misha and Jessica I. I'm kind of curious, how you've been able to do that, and do you think that that's a big part of the interest, in doing these events going forward, to get these kind of quote-unquote super fights with maybe mixed martial artists, whereas maybe some of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu stars aren't as well known, but getting people involved, like you mentioned, a Nick Diaz or maybe a Gunnar Nelson or some of the other, top jiu-jitsu guys who are involved in MMA? Is that kind of a focus for Submission Underground?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we want to put on big matches, and we want to bring attention in and focus in and get this thing off the ground. Grappling has always struggled. I can tell you my own personal experience. When I left MMA, I went into grappling because that was the only option I had. I couldn't get a license. I was on a suspension. I couldn't get a license for unarmed combat. And one thing I noticed about it was participation in grappling outdoes participation in MMA about 20-1. I would go to MMA practice. There'd be 6 guys there. I go to grappling practice. The room was packed. We were having to do two and three groups with guys waiting on the wall because so many people were involved. But fan-wise, it's the other way, 20-1. Fans of MMA are out there everywhere, and grappling fans haven't had the same exposure. And we just thought, you know what, these guys are working hard. They're sacrificing. They've got a skill set. Let's give them somewhere to show it off, somewhere to perform. There wasn't and isn't very many competitions out there. Abu Dhabi, number one, at least, with the history that's behind the event, but it happens once every couple of years. EBI is changing things. Metamoris is again, it's limited in terms of the amount of events they're holding. So that's what really got us behind it. And as far as the grapplers go, I'll tell you, some of them are very good, but there's a lot of things that go on in that community, and it's very hard to get them to agree. There's not a lot of grapplers. They like the mystique. They like the allure that some of them have with all their belts and all their awards, but to get them to put it on the line is a little bit of a challenge. They don't have the wrestler's mindset or the MMA guys' mindset. So we'd love to get the grapplers involved, and we're even doing that on this show. We've got some very high-level grapplers that are specific to that community. But as far as getting big names to come together that are willing to risk it all, don't forget, under these rules, somebody loses. More importantly than somebody wins, is somebody gets beat. And grapplers don't love to do that. We reached out to some grapplers. They didn't like the rules set. They wanted this change or that change. And it doesn't work that way. We're under EBI rules, and that's it. And if you want to compete, you are going to put it on the line. But we have to have a winner and a loser. It's the only way to build divisions and ultimately crown somebody champion is by having an architecture in place where somebody advances and somebody doesn't.
Awesome. Thanks, Chael.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question on today's conference, that's star followed by the digit 1 on your telephone keypad. And we'll now take our next question from Brian Mazik with Forbes.
How you doing? This question, or first question, is for Jon. Jon, I hear you in most of all of the answers that you're giving. You're making a constant reference to the fans. Do you feel as though there's a situation where you really feel compelled to make up for your absences in the octagon by making this appearance? Is that a major motivation for you?
Absolutely. I have a lot of fans that write me every day on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and they talk about, on their unwavering support and just being there no matter what. You're always my champion and things like that. And I understand that UFC 200 was devastating to a lot of them. It's kind of like a thing where you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And I just wanted to do something to remind them, why they watched me in the first place, and give them a glimpse of, just a different side of me, which is just jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to put myself out there and to, be vulnerable for my fans and for the jiu-jitsu community, and just show what I got and give it my best. There's something real freeing about this, and I'm sure the fans will appreciate it. So I'm glad to be that entertainment for them.
Right, and you mentioned Twitter, and obviously that's the best way for pretty much any professional athlete to connect with the fans right now. So we know that you get 140 characters, and we know you have a lot of people that support you, and then we also know obviously you have the other side of the haters. So you get 140 characters to communicate. If fans had to use one word to describe Jon Jones right now, what do you think it would be?
One word, I would say, resilient. I'm resilient. I'm broken. These 2 words.
All right. I definitely appreciate that. Now, I had a question also for Chael. Chael, this event has grown and it is building great momentum as we're coming up. It's only a few days away. And you have the recently retired Dan Henderson and also the recently retired Miesha Tate. Do you also see Submission Underground being somewhat of a breaking period? So this is where some of the greatest names go immediately after their careers are ended. So it's almost like semi-retirement. So you had mentioned those super fights. Could you see this being a regular thing for people for fighters who have recently retired?
Well, that is fairly common where somebody retires, but they still want to go out there and compete. They're still in great shape, and maybe they don't want to go through the training of the punches and kicks, but they do still want to compete. No, that isn't our vision in the least. Generally, when somebody is done, they mean it, and they really are done. But I can tell you, my biggest frustration with MMA, and I probably only got one. It's probably my only complaint, but it's that we get 3 fights a year. And, I grew up from a wrestling background the same as these guys. We go get 5 or 6 matches in a week, every single weekend. And, to be regulated to 3 matches a year, it's tough. So, no, we don't have a vision that this is where somebody will go when they'll retire, but it is a way to supplement your career, to stay busy, to be active, stay in shape, go through the process, get on airplanes, go through a weigh-in, be in the back, warm up, and ultimately walk in front of a crowd full of cheering people and an audience watching around the world, and do a skill and compete with somebody else, slap hands and go as hard as you can and shake hands again and walk away. That's much more of our vision than retirement. But if we've got an opportunity to have Dan Henderson, we'll see if Dan's retired. I've known Dan a long time. I've never seen the guy turn a match down. So let's see how that goes. If a promoter calls him, we'll see how that retirement. I'm not speaking for Dan. I'm just speaking as Dan's friend. I don't know how much I buy that retirement thing.
All right. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
And we'll now take our next question from Felipe Branco with AG Fight.
Hello. First question here for Jon. Jon, there have been some fans saying you handpicked Henderson as your opponent because you think it's an easy win. What do you have to say to those fans?
Well, I didn't necessarily handpick Dan. We asked about it. There were several people who were possible candidates, and Dan was just the name that came. That Dan was the first person to agree to the whole situation. But there was actually a lot more names than Diaz and Dan, and Vinny. There's several more names that were talked about. And as far as people thinking that Dan's going to be this easy victory, I don't know what to expect out of Dan. I mean, Dan has a tremendous amount of experience. He's a very strong athlete. He's an Olympian. Dan's a game opponent. I mean, his last fight, like Chael mentioned, was for the middleweight championship of the world. So this guy is no slouch. We watched this guy, surprise a lot of great fighters, and this is the same guy who knocked out Fedor in Fedor's prime. So you can never count out a champion like Dan Henderson. And so, I'm taking him very seriously. I know that he's a capable athlete. He's a very special athlete. Lots of gifts. So yeah, people who say things like that are probably people who have never stepped in the ring or stepped in the octagon. Anything can happen on any given day.
Okay, fair enough. Question for Dan now. Dan, you said in the past that you respect Jon Jones as a fighter, but you don't have much respect for him as a human being. Why is that?
Well, I think that might have been taken a little out of context, but I obviously respect Jon, what he's done, in the cage, and I basically said that, in the position he was in, I wish, my love for the sport and MMA is so great, and I've helped build it, and it makes me upset when guys in his position don't represent the sport well and screw up, and I say I wish and I hope that he gets back on the horse and goes on the right path and starts representing himself in the sport well, and that's what I would like to see. I don't ever wish bad things to happen to him because it's not like I dislike him. I don't know him personally, so I can't attack that either. I just think that being in the position that he was in, had a lot of responsibility, and one of them is to represent the sport well. And I think he I'm sure has learned lessons from that. Kind of learned lessons the hard way, I guess. But I say I hope that he comes back and does great. It'd be great to see him. And I'm a fan of all the wrestlers out there, and it's been tough to get behind him because of the other things that he's done, and not represented my sports very well outside of the octagon, I should say. Inside he's done phenomenal things. So, there's no ill will, there's no anything. It's just a kind of a hope and a wish that he does better from now on. And I think a lot of fans are, on the same page with me.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Last question here for Jon. Jon, in the past, you've called Dan a cheater for using testosterone replacement therapy, which was authorized by state athletic commissions. Do you still stand with that criticism in light of your current suspension nowadays, in the moment?
I've never watched Dan do needles. I have no evidence to prove that he's taking steroids throughout his career. That's for the speculation of mine. But at the end of the day, despite what I went through with having estrogen blockers in my system, I still stand behind my words as far as being totally against steroids. I just believe in hard work. At the end of the day, one of my favorite wrestlers, Dan Gable, always said Dan Gable was always against steroids, and he has a quote that really inspired me throughout my career, basically to do the extra and run those miles and not to take any shortcuts. And despite what I've gone through with this USADA situation, it was just proven, and I was just clear that I didn't. In fact, like I said, I wasn't, spoken about being against it, and I'll die being against it.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, guys.
And once again, that is *1 to ask for questions. And it appears there are no further questions in the queue at this time. And Mr. Sonnen, I'd like to turn the conference back to you for any additional or closing remarks.
Yeah, I'll leave it at this. This match is finally going to go down. Submission Underground 2. There's a big buzz. The arena is completely sold out. This is going to be live at flowgrappling.com. It's real easy. It's less than $20, and it doesn't just buy you this match. That buys you a 30-day subscription, 24 hours a day content. This Sunday, December 11th, start at 2:30 Pacific time, 5:30 on the East Coast. Pop in. The entertainment's going to begin at 3, and these guys will probably be in the ring about 90 minutes later. Don't miss the action. That's the final pitch. Thanks for listening, everybody.
And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's conference call. We thank you for your participation.